The Lord is my refuge and my strength. In him will I put all my trust. That verse from the psalm is one that I used just the other day on Wednesday when I had the privilege of leading Soul Space, being the first Wednesday of the month. And we led the Soul Space not in here, but in a place for me within this building, which I often see as being a little refuge, namely the Memorial Chapel. And it was a lovely gathering, especially as we considered the season of the year in which we find ourselves in. This first part of November is often known as the season of remembrance. And as we juggle around the dates of All Saints and All Souls and Remembrance Sunday, we find ourselves during a very solemn, but yet also very nurturing season. As you know, All Saints falls on the 1st of November, followed by All Souls. Last Sunday, we managed to incorporate All Saints. This Sunday, we incorporate All Souls. And then next Sunday, the 14th, we incorporate Remembrance Sunday. But during the season of remembrance, we can feel vulnerable, we can feel weak, we can feel fragile, and often we seek a place of refuge to find our peace, a place where we can put our trust in the Lord. The Lord is my refuge and my strength. In him will I find my trust. During Soul Space, I mentioned that on one occasion I did find a place of refuge unexpectedly, but it was a hard-won place of refuge. It was while I was doing my Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award expedition. We were out on the Cairngorm Plateau, and this is a good few years ago. We were out on the Cairngorm Plateau doing what was meant to be a week of ski mountaineering. But while we were able to reach the top of the plateau, the weather very quickly closed in and it became a whiteout for the next few days, and a big storm enveloped us. Our plan had been to live in snow holes for the week, but this would have been so dangerous and it would have been ridiculous to keep going with our original plan. We needed to be flexible and adapt, and we knew that dotted around the Cairngorms were mountain refuge huts, but it would not be easy to get there because navigating in a whiteout was incredibly difficult. For those of you who know a little bit about mountaineering, you have to put your faith and your trust in the strength of one another. And to navigate, there is no point on the horizon you can take a bearing to in a whiteout. You must send someone ahead just to the point where it looks like they're going to disappear, and you get them to stop, you take a bearing on them, and then you encourage them to walk. And my goodness, what it is to be the point person walking ahead, and you say left or right, to keep them on the bearing. Luckily, our navigational skills were up to it, and we had confidence and faith in one another, and we reached a hut. I think it was either the Sinclair hut or Jean's hut, and for the next 3 days we bunkered down, stealing each other's blankets as best we were able to try and keep warm for the next 3 days. But it was a huge achievement that we managed as a group to rely so much on one another. As your minister, I would suggest that God was walking alongside us, in front of us and behind us and alongside, helping us to navigate to a place of safety, to a refuge on that mountain. Well, where does this fit in with our readings today? Well, I think if we go to the story of Ruth, we come to it at a good point, because the journey to get to this good point, the navigating that had to go on to get to a place of refuge, had been incredibly tough indeed. Tough for Naomi. Her sons were taken from her, and as a widow, she would be, on paper, one of those who we hear about in the gospel reading, so ruthlessly being exploited by rich and influential men, taking away her heritage, taking away her land, taking away her livelihood. As a widow, there was very little she could do. There was, in fact, no refuge for her to go to. But she found her refuge initially not in a place, not in a wee bothy, not in a beautiful memorial chapel. She found her refuge in a person. And that person was her daughter-in-law, Naomi, who could easily have said, look, my dear mother-in-law, let's cut to the chase here. There is no future for us if we stay together. And in fact, her mother-in-law, Naomi, tried to encourage Ruth to go her own way so that she might still have a life ahead of her. But Ruth said, no, where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. And my goodness, how Ruth navigated Naomi back to her hometown, where she was an outcast, where she was a widow who was ready to have all her possessions taken from her, from the rich and the powerful and the influential. But Naomi found herself back home with Ruth, and Ruth found a refuge somewhere else, in initially a place where she gleaned on the fields of Boaz, and that must have required a huge amount of bravery, really going out of her comfort zone, probably feeling totally alone each day, being mocked, being abused, being put in real danger. But rather beautifully, in the landowner Boaz, she found a refuge, someone who had to tread carefully amongst the expectations of society of that day, but someone who was able to navigate Ruth into a good place, initially by ensuring that when she did go to glean, his workmen would ensure that she was looked after. They would put out extra excess barley for her to gather. They would look after her so that Boaz could put together a better plan which would see not just Ruth, but as a result of it, Naomi find themselves in a new home, in a new refuge, where they would be nurtured, loved, and cherished. And so perhaps a refuge isn't a place. Perhaps a refuge are the people that we are privileged to journey with. The people on this All Souls Sunday who may not physically be here, but who are certainly walking alongside us every step of the way, just as God's own dear Son, Jesus Christ, does so too, to navigate us through the good times, to navigate us when there appears to be no way ahead, but ultimately to help us find a refuge and a strength in him, to whose name be all the glory and all the praise. Amen.